In my mind, there was only two options. You either quit or you survive. And so I became a survivor for a good 20 years. My parents removed me from their home when I was 15, just kind of been on my own since I was a young man. And along that time, it was dealing with the loneliness and the rejection, really just created a lot of anger and a lot of bitterness that really fueled who I became. So it became severely depressing around the age of 30. And that's when I really started drinking. I was very successful in what I was doing, but I was alone and I needed help. And I went back home to New Orleans and worked for a rehab there for 3.5 years. And along the way, I met my wife online in 2018. We got married. At that point, I was sober for 5 years. The problem was I still had that underlying pain and that feeling of rejection that has always walked with me. And it started to manifest at home. I entertained the thought of drinking again by compromising with a 0% alcohol beer. And that became a gradual progression to I'll stop and get an airplane bottle. And it didn't even begin out of despair or depression, but it created it. And so I ended up going full force. And one night I was supposed to be watching the kids, and I'd started drinking early that morning. And by the afternoon, my wife knew I was drunk, and I was actually heading to Grove because I knew I just needed to talk to one of the staff members there. And my wife was sending one of her friends to pick up our daughter, and I turned around. It was that moment where it changed everything in my family. My heart was dark. It was angry. It was vile. That was when I knew that I had never met Jesus the way that I thought I had. It changed my life. And I knew in that moment I needed something more. And so I came into Big Fish September 2021. And at that point, I had no job. I had no marriage. I had nothing. I didn't know what to do next. And I needed guidance. The biggest part of the switch in Big Fish was I knew what I was there for. But when I found out why I was there, it gave purpose to everything else. A week before I graduated, my mom called. My dad was in kidney failure and liver failure. And I wasn't angry with God. I was questioning him because at this point, I'm a week from graduating Big Fish. At that time, God had already restored my job. He restored my family. And I felt like I thought you were going to restore this relationship. I just remember kissing his forehead and telling him thank you. And the restoration with my sons and my family and what they got to watch God do in my life, I got to watch in my own father's life. And his mercy allows us that when we make our most foolish decisions and our most desperate attempts at life, there's always a way where he'll restore. I believe that my life has been completely transformed. I do believe that I'm a new creation, and I know what that means.